Welcome into restorative today, and I want you to set up your props so you have a bolster horizontal across your mat and a block in front that's on its lowest setting. Blanket on the other side, let's go with one. If you need to have it in the side yard, you might need that, but I want us to have enough release in our jaw and our circulation into the throat, the neck. And so when you sit on your block in front of your bolster, you're going to lower back so the pelvis and the ribs are entirely supported and lengthening. Okay, so you might not think my pelvis is lengthening, like why would I do that? But you do want to find that instead of a deep, deep arch, this block should help you to form the support so that the lift of the rib cage, right, the base of the sternum is it's tipping up. You have a tipping xiphoid, and then as you bend the knees, walk the feet out wide enough so then you can start to settle into using maybe sand. Okay, if you've got some weight nearby, use the sand so you can start some weight training for the respiratory muscles. If you have interest in using sand, but not here, you can always extend the thighs down and place the sand across the upper thigh and kind of feel where that band of bones, right, from thigh, pelvis, torso, works for the sandbag. I kind of like both. I like either sand here if I'm trying to support those hip flexors, which, oh my, everybody is trying to get them to lengthen and so as to elongate and extend. But some of us like this weight training here in the ribs. We get lots of that in class, really, for so many things that we do. So you choose. But as you move your arms open, just let all the props, the other things, be at the side. If you've got a ball, another block, a belt, a wall, hopefully that stays as a good prop near you. And as you descend back into the curiosity of your circulation kind of event to begin, let the eyes rest back into the brain. And if it's useful for you, you have an eye pillow, you can place that across them. Anything that gives you awareness inside. So sometimes having that curtain of darkness over the eyes can assist that motion and direction. But we kind of shift our attention to where the breath lands in the body. The knees can bend, the legs can extend, either bent or extending. You could even have the soles of the feet together and the knees out. It's kind of an interesting pelvic basin if you choose this variation, cobbler's pose. And you might try extending the legs for a little bit of time. If you're lucky to feel the wall, you can have a little micro bend in the knees, but still feel that resistance into the bones. So anything where we can compute minor resistance and then maintain, because this practice is about kind of maintenance of our body. And then as you maintain that extension, however you're creating the movement with the bones, solid in and out breath through the nose. Just riding the breath, adjusting the circulation in the chest or the shoulders. So there's a wide reach with the chest, right? This is an area that tends to go forward because we're forward motion creatures, right? With that area sometimes rounding a lot. So this could feel kind of peculiar, right? To just be with it for several moments. But where the shoulders center back, you can even reach your fingertips to the connection of the neck sloping down into the shoulder bands and just feel, is it even on one side to the next? Is it actually relaxing or is it tone, like gripping? So maybe the breath focus can help you with that. Breathing in through the nose, ribs expand, throat relaxes. Exhale, empty the lungs. And you might find your exhalation is still back with the mouth, right? But you're not talking, hopefully. You might be talking to yourself, but that will make you breathe through the mouth, right? So you are lucky. You can work on that breathing through the nose in both directions as often as you can. And just relax if that doesn't happen each breath. You have many breaths ahead of you. Okay, now, if the legs are bending, I want you just to try, if you don't want to straighten them down and that's too much on your back, you can always try putting the soles of the feet together, even if the knees don't push that far out. With the sandbag, it's interesting because I don't want the sand to fall. So I'm just letting my knees go just the right amount. So I can work on that circulation in the pelvis, whether your sand is at your ribs or at the hips. Okay, so what I do want you to notice is the circulation in the adductors, the inner leg pits. And then as you lift up the knees to point up, walk the bottoms of the feet towards the seat, move any sand away. And let's bring the right foot up and cross that right ankle to the left knee and take reclining figure 4 with no ambition. Okay, so meaning as the thigh reaches outwards, kind of feel the obvious, right? The knee points out. There's a little bit of positioning of stretch. It could be really mild for us. But this is a healthy way probably to work with the knee, right? Instead of kind of cranking the leg in right now, I'm just working on creating a nice amount of length in that right psoas, stretching open, the knee moves out. Should I scoot my left foot farther down? You could try that and see how that is perceived. Or you can bring the left foot closer in, right? So it's really up to you. I mean, I play with this. This is, some people would teach this as a tree pose, right? If you've ever had a session where someone will have you be on your back and try tree pose this way, but with the foot up to the opposite leg. It's kind of fun to try it out now that we're turning into a tree pose, but you don't need to do that. But feel the right buttock. Okay, just feel the circulation there. Notice that it kind of, everything's kind of tight. There's tension, there's resistance, but you're not trying to grip your glutes, right? It's grip will happen when it's time. Grip happens. Okay, now bring the right knee to point up and just take your time. I like to wag my tail a little bit in between. And then I shift the left ankle to the right knee. Left knee releases open. There's probably some differences. I mean, it could be even the science of how you are connecting in your upper outer left hip, kind of the root into the pelvis might be measurably grippier or looser. So just feeling, this is a good one to just do this variation versus hugging the legs in. Working here in the hip flexor, adductor. I think most people need to do a little bit of work with that inner leg track. And it's also, we have some similarities, right, with the focus on leg pit, groins, lymph, right? So we're going to be draining it out in just a few moments, upside down. So work on that track of inner leg circulation, even if you scoot your right foot farther down or you try tree pose, maybe that's of interest. Caution though, because for some it might be a tricky thing for the knee. But it is interesting, right, to work with the hip, the frontal hip bones. Try to keep the ribs continuing. I think they have no choice but to stretch horizontally. And then as you slide that foot back in a little closer, if you have it downwards, let's start to propose the movement of getting both of the adductors basically upside down. Well, they don't know they're upside down, but what's between our ears thinks that's true. So as we come out, So you're going to push the bolster. Now this, you do need only one blanket under your head. Don't do more than one. But walk the feet towards your seat and then just push the bolster ever so little. I mean, I probably pushed it down maybe 2 inches. And then I'm going to settle my pelvis, bring my feet up and see if that's enough. I'm going to go down a little bit further. So the edge of my tailbone is, well, it's at the edge of that center of the bolster. Okay, so when you lift up your knees, you squeeze them in a little bit. You make that blanket so it's just under your center of the back of your skull. You don't worry about the block. If you don't like it there, you can always push it aside. But you feel your rib cage on the bolster. Okay, so if you're not so sure, it's like when I'm back on the bolster, I do feel my ribs are supported by the bolster. Okay, bolster is not just under my pelvis. The rule of the rib is in this pose, Viparita Karani, the rule of the ribs. I didn't make that up. It's a Judith Lassiter discussion. Okay, so I'm going to take my sand and I'm going to try to get it on my feet here. Okay, if you haven't done sand in the middle of the room for a while on your feet, it's kind of funny. If you take a couple of years off of this one, then you give it a try again. For some reason, it's well, like anything, you got to keep practicing, or it's like riding a bike, right? You'll get back, you'll figure it out again. It's going to take you a few times. So I'm really denting my bolster, and I'm right in the center. I'm pushed into it. I'm not trying to resist my weight at all. I'm just going to let myself be as heavy as I can be in the pose. In fact, I've added weight to myself now. Oh, the joy. So if you've got that sand and it's kind of sloppy on your feet, it's okay. It doesn't have to look perfect, but it should feel like the weight on each foot is good. So make any change. If you decide, I can't use sand on my feet, this is just so hard, don't worry about it. You don't have to. You can toss it off again and then just put a belt under your feet and pull. So you have resistance. Your elbows could be down on the floor and you have something that's holding the circulation and holding that reverse flow back to the heart. So we do this at the end, right? I'm almost always do Viparita. That's what I love about the home practice. People can use a wall space. Everyone's got it. But when you have that hip structure pressing down, we're defining the strength on this one a little more because we don't have a wall. So I want you to bring your hands to hold on to a block. Hopefully you've got an extra one next to you or down by the side. Okay, so place a block to the abdomen, okay, in this group, or abdomen, whoever's watching. And my block is right at the, well, I just place it right there. It's right at the thighs. I got to use my hands, otherwise it's going to flop back on my ribs. So make sure that the legs are not going back here. We don't want them going overhead. This is not a plow pose. This is a pretty serious pose, really, for your heart health. It's a great one, but you got to be vertical. It's got to be straight up with the legs. Even if you're pretty mobile in the hamstrings, not a good idea to bring them overhead. Just why would my back need that? As you push into the block, I want you to feel that there's a little bit of resistance with the hands. I don't think we've done this one before, and I'm practicing this one a little more regularly as I observe people, and it's just that I think the flexibility model is just sometimes we take off into it again and again. And this is not about that. This pose is about, you have to have some flexibility to do it though, right? So the abdominals lift and lower. I can feel the push into the block. Okay, I'm going to hold the block with my hands on the sides. The block is at its widest setting, if you can call that. And I'm just going to lift the block straight up towards the ceiling. So it's kind of dunking a little bit of energy into my arms. But if your shoulders can work this way, seems pretty basic. I want you to push into the block though. So push. So the upper bones, right? The arms, the upper breathing muscles are pretty stern here. Press. And then my lower belly lifts and lowers with the breath. And during the day, it drops down, right? Prolapse. So right now we're trying to lift and lower. And now try to keep that lift and lower as you might move your arms maybe back over, head maybe. But your work is on continuing that lift and lower. You certainly can micro bend your knees if your legs are getting tired. Only 20 more minutes here. Okay, not true. All right, now as I come back up with the arms, I'm going to push into the block. Breathe. Rest it back on my belly. And just see if my legs, they do try to move back. So I just want to keep it very clean, the movement with the legs. I don't know what that has to do with being clean, but it sounds direct, right? All right, now, as you move the block to the side, we're going to bend through the legs. And, you know, if your sand falls off down by your down below your seat, that's not a great thing. You might need it. So I would position your knees towards your chest. You can drop your sand behind you to the side of you. But let's take a little sand break here. We're going to take a ball and place it between the knees. Okay. The feet hopefully feel a little tingly, like that circulation change. See all the things you can just do with the body and shapes for your circulation. It's very nice. Got a body, I'm going to move it in shapes. So the ball, I'm going to try to have you squeeze into it if you can. And if you don't have a ball, you could use a block. The ball is better because it responds a little bit. There's resistance. So move the knees or the hips. It's also hips side to side and warm up the back. Just get a feeling when you go side to side that you have the opportunity, if you like, to go farther or do a little less, right? So you might take one pass and have the knees just barely kind of flick over to the side, and one pass you might move them towards the arm. A good idea to maybe close your eyes and just really sense into your awareness the response in your body, right? I mean, it could be not even a muscular response. It could be the digestive tract or something else that's calling out. You're living, you're a living being with all these dynamic things. So, and sometimes it's pretty plain, right? Just my back feels a stretch, or maybe it's achy. So keep in mind moving the knees to the side is quite useful for my back muscles, my hips. Okay, let's take about 4 more times total. So it's a bit of a cross balance for the ribs as well. I want to keep this work on the back with the bolster really simple today. So I don't think we're going to add a bunch of belt stuff. I thought we might, but let's keep going with a nice, steady, strong practice coming up into our leg and hips. Okay, so this moves more flow back to the heart, right, when our hips are lifted, inversion. The next time you come into center, as you move the knees towards the chest, just remove the ball and take a block. Okay, try this. If it doesn't work, you can use a belt under your foot. It requires a bit of flexibility. So I'm going to place the block behind my right thigh and let the left leg release down. Okay, so the block has got to be, it kind of smushes. It's kind of smushing into your leg. Now this, of course, you can see it requires a certain degree of flexibility to move into this position. So, wow, it can feel interesting. You're pushing, right? And you're almost working in the direction of pulling. It's a push and pull with the leg band. You kind of visualize the hamstring like it's a TheraBand or something, that you're just kind of pulling back. Okay. And now just release and place both legs straight up and shake them out. Do a little bit of a leg tantrum. Tantrumasana. All right. Now just the legs probably have a little different sensation, maybe a little more space at the back of the right leg. So what, right? Change sides, left leg is up. The block can be behind the upper out back of the leg, not the outer, but the back. And your knee could bend. It's up to you, right? You know, is the knee bending going to affect your hamstring stretch? I think it does a little bit. I like to just be always so curious. And for me, one side, I pull a little different in my torso as well. So trying to work on creating balance. These are really interesting pathways to work on. And when you hold onto the block, just be a little mesmerized by how the hip responds. It usually stays solid in place. Like, you're not going to move me much, right? Just stay with the back line. Again, if this doesn't work, I didn't even show you the modification, but you could put the belt under your foot, right, and extend. You might think that looks like it's about the same thing. Well, if you can't really get the leg this far back and you have the belt under your foot, you could be this far down. And for some people, that's what you got, right, with the range. That's all good. Okay. Range is range. That's all it is. Okay, now just take a mini moment here with the hip flexor focus. So when you lower down that left leg, keep the legs reaching. Keep the thighs in that reach in the front bones, okay? And then as best as you can, you're basically gonna roll towards all fours. I laugh because this is a little awkward. It's hard to do this with legs straight, admittedly, okay? So when you roll, see if you can slide the heels in a little bit and just push off a foot and roll to the side and come around. Try not to do full knee bend, just a little bit. But now we'll get knee bending. So turn to hands and knees, and let's take our bolster. So it is way far away from your body, and you can just hold on to it with your hands. You can put a blankie under your knees or a little pad if you like. But when you stretch out your arms, you can lower your head down between. And if this is too strenuous, you just bring the bolster closer into you and put your forearms on it, okay? And if that's too strenuous, you just pull it in closer and you lean into it, okay? I want you just to feel the breath in the back, right? The skin on the back. Feel the breath in the back. Okay, now as you come up, move the bolster straight down center, right? So you're going to be actually just lying onto bolster. And reach forward with the chest, push your feet into the wall. I did mention you should be next to a wall here. So your feet are back to the wall and you're in really a nice swoop. Okay. Right, a nice arch through the spine. Okay, now kind of feel in increments. I mean, this could be a wrist issue too, but when you do start to lower down, try to keep the heart reaching. Right, its flexibility is different, right? So when I reach the heart and I lower down, I'm going to feel right where I can have my elbows by my sides, but my hands aren't pushing the ground. Kind of little T-Rex arms here, okay? T-Rex asana. And then stretch the arms back by the sides of the legs, right? The hips. Or maybe down the side of your leg if you have longer arms than me. Everyone does. Okay, so pushing into the balls of your feet, strengthening into your back. Okay, now as you lower down your arms, right? If I lower down just my head, it's a bit tricky. So it's nice to have arms. So I'm going to reach my elbows forward and reach them out of the sides. So instead of arms like out and palm down, elbows stretch forward, sides reaching, and still keep that lift of strength in your back. So tummy time. This is a nice variation of locust pose, and you don't have to be turning your head to the screen or anything. You can just have your head lifted. Just feel the nice positioning for your neck. And then feel what it's like to still push into the wall a little bit, and the head bows down, maybe halfway, maybe all the way to the hands. And now I want you to focus finally on the breath at the back, right? So consider the skin of the back trying to move with the breath. I find that really challenging because I'm used to the focus in the front, in the side, like side sage, those poses we've done. What can help you with this would be to have like a sandbag on your back, and then you would really try to approach breathing. But that's a tricky thing to get coordinated, right? So just breathing, pushing into the bolster with your ribs. Okay, take one more big tug on the lungs. So deep breath, long tug, long tugboat. And then as you exhale, let the knees relax. The broadness of the back of the pelvis is clear. Depends on how far down your bolster is, I think, right? But as you let your head lower down, take just a few, about 10 seconds or so, just resting your head onto your hands. Okay, now as you push down into your elbows, you'll slide the hands back besides the bolster, and we're going to work our way to roll the shoulders back, and then come on up to table, and move your bolster right near you, just next door to your mat on the side. And let's take a lunge. So let's see. I think having a blanket under your knees might be good for some. I'm going to use a blanket under my knees because I know kind of where we're aiming with this one. So you might just slide it on the, well, coordinating here. So my blanket, when I apply it, I'll just kind of push it to my base of my thigh, my knee, and then I just let it drop down. Then when I come back up, it's pretty much supporting me. Sometimes you have to move it back, huh? All right. So take a step with the right foot, but when you reach, you can tell how your hips kind of do a little bounce. So getting some blocks will be really, I think, critical for this. So have them up high, and then the back is kind of absorbed into the leg here, right? You can tell my back is swooping down. So gently push into your block. See what could be gentle. All right, so not going to be as forceful as I can be, but I'm going to feel something a little bit bendy with the elbows. And then feel the right foot, maybe let it scoot a little bit forward so that your back thigh can stretch. Now, some of us will need our back knee off of the ground because it hurts our knee, right? So if you need to do that, you need to find yourself in a little more comfort, lift the back knee. But see if you can let that left quad stretch a little bit. Yeah, I'm starting to push into my blocks a little too much. So maybe bending with the elbows so I put more weight in my leg. Okay. Now, as I start to lift up, I'm going to breathe deep, a little bit of a lung tug. And then exhale and see if I can lift the back knee up and push into the wall with that left foot. Unless you got a better idea. Okay. So now there's more weight in my hands. Okay, cannot resist the hands at this point. So feel if you can walk the blocks back and flip the back foot. So you're going to lower the left heel towards the floor. Now I'm going to have my heel a little bit up at the wall because it just seems a little intense if I try to get my heel down, huh? So what you might do is try to lower the heel. If it's just not lowering down and touching, then lift it up to the wall. And see if you can lighten your load on your hands. You can make a fist so you're not pushing into the joints, using the muscles. I want you to try to lift up, and if the shape is too stretched out, you just hold your blocks and scoot your right foot farther back. And then you can start to straighten both legs. Okay. So we're going to be working our way towards pigeon pose today, but I want us to have enough stimulation in the leg muscles to get there. So it feeds into that pose nicely. It's not such a shock. So feel when you push into your right foot. Now maybe you can try getting your left heel closer to the floor. They're in two different tracks, right? You're not on one, you got your left foot, you can look back, it's not right behind the right foot, I hope. Give yourself a chance. Okay, now you can imagine standing all the way up with your arms to the sky would be tricky here, huh? You can just try to figure out how that would happen. So let's do it this way. Let's bring our hands to the blocks and step the left foot to the right. You can do that, that works out fine. And then as your knees bend, bring your arms forward. And as you lift your arms up, you can see half of me, but you'll reach the arms to the sky and stretch your arms back. Okay, emit pressure into your heels. Keep the tailbone a tailbone, right? Let it gently arch. You don't have to scoop your tail under here. And then arms open out, and as you come down, bring the palms down and switch sides. So right leg reaches back. Okay, if you decide, oh, I want more forward bend, we'll get a good forward bend. Don't worry, we'll get there. We'll take a nice wide forward bend, a little easier on our hands. So as you reach the back heel, could be a different heel, I think. So the back calf might work better lowering down all the way on this side, or maybe not. So first things first, we just have a lunge, but we're going backwards on this side, just if you haven't noticed, the leg is up to start. We're gonna go backwards because our leg is already up. So don't put the knee on the blanket yet here, but keep that reach. And then see what happens if you move your torso forward, you try to arch a little bit through the upper back. I know it's tricky to try to feel the vertebral kind of movement here. Like I feel kind of stuck, right? It's not like I could lift my head towards the ceiling right now. It's to go a little forward, but that's the maximum. So you might put your hands into more of a fist on the block, see if you can move a little bit higher up. You might need to have the feet not so far apart. And those of you that have the heel lifted at the wall base, maybe, just maybe, try to lower it down. Okay, there's always further to go, and there's always more maintenance to do. So how nice that you're really combing through the body, getting it kind of a little bit of a cleanse here. And every class is a cleanse. Okay, now feeling that firmness in the bones, we're going to take one forward bend before we come back to a lunge again. So let's just turn right. So you're going to take a wide stance forward bend. Some of you know this. So you're going to just turn to the right, and both feet are going to just pivot a little bit. The right foot doesn't have to pivot as much as the left, but my feet look pretty much parallel-ish. I'm going to take my right foot away from the wall so I can get even support on both. Take your blocks forward, and then let your head lower down completely as much as it can. Now, that doesn't mean you're touching the floor with your head. That's not what I mean. But let the weight of your hip circulation stretch back. The weight into your feet is solid. And manage that bridge right from the shoulders to the hands. Breathing. Nodding your head maybe a little side to side. Now as you pull the blocks in, let's turn back to the left and now lower the back knee a little bit. Now some of us might keep the back knee up and decide we'll just take a low lunge, but the knee will be kind of just skimming the surface. Some will lower it to the blanket and be pretty comfortable with it. So since we're just simply lunging, low lunging, let's slide our bolster back in. Okay, so we got a bolster. I got an idea. Oh, good. Okay, the bolster, you can push it back or you can lean into it, one or the other. Okay, if I lean into the bolster with my thigh, I really like this support for my, eventually for my knee. So I'm trying to push down. Have to be careful about your front leg, right? So the knee is just, it's a little over the ankle, but it's not over your toes. So you should be able to see those toes or the sock, whatever. But feel where that quad has a nice stretch, lengthening through that right quad. Breathing. All right. Okay, so with that reach into the hip, right? This is getting into the hip. Okay, so I feel mostly my right quad, hip flexor, I can feel that front rim of the thigh stretching. The kind of issue though is that I'm feeling it more in the structure, like around the joints. So what I'm trying to do is get more muscle matter. So, because I don't want to wear that all out, right? I want to get the pack of muscle to feel the heat. So now, if I start to lift up my back knee, that might help. I can kind of lay it on the bolster, feel more surface heat right in the leg. And then just lower down so that your blocks go forward and your left foot's going to walk over to the right side. So the back knee has to come down at some point, toe, heel, or ball the foot heel is really what it is. And then the knee moves out to the left side and you're in pigeon pose. All of a sudden now your foot went over there. So if you can maneuver that around, feel where that resistance is. I like to be in pigeon upright, not sleeping pigeon sometimes. Just give this a go to strengthen into my back. This is where baby back bends are good for you, right? If it feels like I can do this, there's no pain. It's a little bit of squeezing in the kidneys. And then as you lower down, you might go down straight to the floor. You might have a blanket under your elbows. You choose. But as you lean in, feel that right foot push. And you have to be careful, right? Some of us might go, pigeon isn't going to work today for me. So what would your modification be? Here's what it would be. You would sit on the bolster with your right foot in, close to the bolster, touching, and just place the left foot either on the floor in front of the right shin, putting maybe a block under the right knee, or maybe a block, especially if the knee is bugging you a lot, you could put a ball and a block. This is what I've been noticing some people are working with here and there. And then lean forward. Now, you know that before I've taught this with the foot on the block, which is okay, but it just depends on the knee stuff. Sometimes it's not gonna work for people. Okay, so everybody's knee has its own stories, doesn't it? And how it got there, and what bothers it and what doesn't. So find what works, and if you're all the way down the elbows, that's fine. Okay, I like to be a little bit on a perch with my arms, probably 70% of the time on this one, so that I can just feel the movement of my abdominals releasing down and then drawing back in and up. So if I push down all the way, then I can't really feel that movement myself. My belly just kind of drops. It doesn't have any actions. Okay. So now when we switch sides, I think this group's on left side, right? That last demo I showed was, yeah, so Cynthia, you're doing that correctly, yeah. Because I just downloaded incorrectly. I just was like, I just said put that foot, but really it's left foot, that's forward. Yeah, so if you do the seated variation, yeah, you might try the block and the ball on top of it for the knee that's out. Someone in class that was in a lot of rehab with me found that working, and I just thought, well, how come I never thought of that? But unless you're in it, you probably won't know, right, what to do. So now when you switch the side, it's not just a situation with the knee, it's with the back too. So when I come around, if you're in pigeon, you're just gonna swing that leg across and switch sides. right? Take the right leg forward, left leg back. Situate the rear. If this is too much on your hip, if it's like, oh, it is a hip stretch, you know, you could put a ball under your right rear. However, if the knee doesn't tolerate this, then you would take the pose. So those of you in pigeon are here, elbows down or hands pushing chest up. Those of you in seated pigeon are going to put that right foot forward. Okay, I'm going to figure it out this side. Block maybe. If the knee is high enough up, you won't really find this works, will you? You could put sand, but why add anything extra to it, huh? And lean forward. And work on the awareness in the spine, right? Think of like the connectors, like for our nerves and so forth. There's just a lot of communication spinally, right? All the way featuring into our body. So just work a little bit on spine focus. You don't have to have your knees touching the ground. You can put a block under each of the legs and lean forward. Okay, and those of us in that different variation with our left leg back, is that right? We just got two sides and it's too confusing. Okay. I got two sides and it's too confusing. I definitely should get a sweatshirt that says that. And then some sort of yoga thing on the back, huh? Okay, now when I lean in, take about 2 more cycles of breath. That's it. Okay, so the midsection, not only just the hip, but the low back has had some little bit of squeezing here. We did some leg reaching. Now we're going to come into side sage. So I want you to come on up. If you're seated, you got no problems because you just lean. And then you're going to swing the left leg forward and hold a second. Let's not do that quite yet. I have a different idea. So we're already seated on the bolster. So let's do this. Let's move our bolster. You need to tap the legs, sides of the knees. You can take the ball and do a little bit of ace bandage practice. This is a good one around the knee. I like this. Okay, do that while I'm helping you figure out where we're going here. Okay, so you're going to move the bolster back so you can touch the wall. Okay, do a little bolster scoot. If you need to sit on the ground and move it back because that hurts, then do so. But let's take it so we stretch the left leg forward, and this will be really simple twisting work, but some of you might have to be a little careful with the knee on this. So I want you to know if you feel like you're hyperextending, then just put a blanket under the left, just below the knee. It doesn't need to be bound up like in a roll. It could just be there. It might need to be in a roll. Kind of depends on your knee, doesn't it? So just think of yourself always in some sort of rehabilitation as you mature along. So if you want something under your knee, put something under your knee. But cross the right leg over the left. I like this because it makes my right foot, I can't pull it that high up with the blanket. It's like, that's it. That's all I get. Just a little dose, a little helping. So reach through the left foot, and without any sand yet, I want you to work on just holding below that right knee and just feeling kind of that prim and proper focus of lifting up through the sternum. Right, up through the sternum. Okay, if you touch onto the sternum and you breathe, I mean, you might, hopefully you're lucky by this time in the session, you're feeling the breath is a little lower. You're not like such a chest breather by now. That probably happens just when you don't talk a lot, right? Just a little more breath below. So turn to the right and reach back to the wall, okay? And let the hand touch. It could be palm open, right? It could be more of a spider hand where you just have pads, the fingertip pads, right? That works too. And then left elbow to the right leg and take the twist. Lift the heart, turn the ribs, breathing. Just feel the ribs expand it's not easy. I don't think this is an easy one. So it's a pretty elementary twist, but if you spend some moments in it, you can feel where it works the shoulders, the chest, the ribs with breath. Okay, just notice what a breath is like here. And then come out and just notice what a breath is like. Right, it's probably a little easier, right? So it's a nice thing where you can kind of tug your lungs a bit, right? Lung twister, twisted lung. So now let's take the right foot to the inside of the left leg. You might need your blanket still, but you're going to bring the left foot to the inside of the left leg, the right foot, sorry, to the inside of the left leg. Boy, that would be tough. And then stretch your left leg out to the left side. So it's about to 10 o'clock on the left side, the left foot. Some of us are really used to this one. Okay. So I'm going to still have my blankie. It feels good. This feels comfy. So a ball can be under the right knee and a sandbag goes to the right thigh. Kind of combing through the musculoskeletals here. Here we go. And then you're going to just lean down to the left side and let the right arm reach over. And you don't have to use a belt. You might, but sometimes just sliding down the leg and feeling that reach. And I want you to play with this movement process. So the right hand comes back to the wall. The left hand touches the right leg and you create that twist. Okay, come back to that side swipe, lengthening through the right side. Breathe. Ribs kind of balloon. And let that rib balloon help you come back up, reach to the wall, and turn. And take about one more pass and just noticing, right, the reach of the side. Be careful, right? You don't want to go too far down to the leg with the right hand. Just a little bit, and then rib balloon, lift up, and then turn. Right hand to the wall. Hold the right knee with the left hand. Okay. Now come out, roll the shoulders. Feel that you can go back and down with them more than you can go forward. Okay, that's a concept in life. Okay, and then let's take the right leg forward, reach it, get rid of the sand, get rid of the ball. Place your blanket if you're using that under the right knee. Okay, if you need more than this kind of a blanket, like your knee is this high up, then use more. Okay, why would I do that? Well, some of us might find that we need to do that for the knee. And why would we even do the pose if we have to put so much support? Well, because we're working on the spine. We're working on spine care, right? So if the leg is having a difficult time with the knee joint, I'm going to try to work on sitting myself up with having these legs below me. But they make me work out in my center. And then as I turn to the left, oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. Hold below the left knee. Always something to learn. And just find that awareness in the vine of the spine. Ribs moving. Maybe you don't feel your ribs on one of these. Maybe you feel the belly move. See if you can just gently persuade yourself to turn left. So feel, if you turn, you want to keep the axis, the lifted spine, you're rotating. The left hand reaches back. The right elbow goes to the left knee, maybe. Some of us, it's going to be the right arm reaches over the other side, and that's the best. Some of us are going to be elbow. But I find for me, this makes me round my back, elbow. I'm a little bit flexed. I'm perplexed. I'm perplexed. So if I let my arm lengthen and then my left armpit, chest, the pec, right, you can tell right below the sternum, like this muscle here, and even though you might think, oh, pecs are really big, but the sensation in them is kind of right on the margins for some of us in the pec when it gets applied pressure. So use the fingers, stretch out, and then Yeah, don't do too much, right? Just a little bit is enough. Right, one twist is enough with this variation. The right foot could flex. If you had another wall right there, it'd be really nice. If you could really set up a nice station here, huh? Okay, now before you come out, just notice the left armpit chest area. Feel that is kind of nice work. Some of us, this mid body has pretty good mobility, and then we kind of forget this upper pack of muscles that round a lot during the day. So let's try to stimulate the circulation there into the heart and the lungs. Okay, and also that all the channel right in the chest, the lymph, endocrine, so we're still working all in there. Come back forward and then just set up. So I like to go slow, like I've got this little turn in my ribs here. Now I'm going to step my left foot to the inside of the right leg and then stretch my right leg out. Put my blanket under the right knee and then scoop the left foot towards. Now you might have to reset your sitting situation. Like you might have to kind of push and lean back. You don't have to levitate, but just feel kind of the basin of the pelvis. And instead of it being kind of pushed in now, it's kind of wide and you're trying to increase that stretch in the inner thigh. Okay. So ball or ball and block under the left knee. Maybe it's both. Okay. And then sand on the left thigh and lean over to the right side. This one, take it away. Decide if you're going to lean this way, and then eventually you'll come back around. So I think this is nice to vary these two different twists that we're doing. The last one was a little bit more of a conformed twist, and now we have a little more broadness from the pelvis up. So play with that motion. Let it be a little bit of a free play. So as you hold onto the knee, feel the turn. The right leg is out towards 1 or 2 o'clock. Yeah, so feeling the motion. Now, if the ribs are turning and the heart is lifting, you want to keep it right straight in center. So twist to the left, hand touches low or high. I like it low sometimes to really work my rib section. I've got some nice posterior kind of tone to work with the obliques, and it's kind of fun to work with the core. Just turn it and lengthen it. Let's take just one more pass before I get too lost in it. The Nicole ramble. Okay, last one. If you haven't already finished it up, reaching. Okay, now as you turn, let's see, we're all going to the left, I believe. We're turning left. Okay. So now we're going to let that left side get nice and long without any effort in the shoulder joint, not as much as sitting up tall. So I want you to just push the blanket aside. If you need to do any tapping on the legs, when I thought about something between these two sides, it was like a cobbler's pose, but maybe tapping is better. The inner knee, maybe do your little bandage around the knee. It doesn't have to hurt or I barely feel it, but it's self-care. I see it and it looks healthy. So lean down and come off your bolster, slide down, and let's get set up for side sage. My latest fave with side sage is at the wall, because the wall is a lot easier on the shoulder joint, right? If I have the hand reaching up higher, it's easier. So hopefully we'll do a bones class when I have my little break at the college, and we'll have time for a bones class. Okay, so we've got a bolster in the center. Actually, it's not actually in the center. Some of you, it's going to be farther towards the wall. So many of you might be in the center. Okay, but I'm pretty short, so I'm going to have to get closer to the wall. But you have to kind of guess it. So have a couple blankets. Make sure that the fold of the blankets is, pretty much a quarter fold or so. If you decide this is too high, you can always kind of push one away. Okay. All right, so all we need is a ball under the left knee. The left thigh might stretch back. It might be really close to the right foot. If you're kind of needing to guard your knee a little bit more, you might have your knees together, close together with a ball between them. Okay? So that's okay. So if you decide this strain, it feels strained, don't do it. Lean into the side. If your bolster kind of kicks back at you, you're probably too close to it. Having a little bolster conversation here. So lean down to the right side and now grab your sand up on the left side and then take your time to figure out, will my arm go up here? Would it go on the side to my bolster for a little bit of time? Feel the little bit of weight in your right hip. And notice this is definitely a hip oriented position, right? There's a hip orientation that takes time. So feel where the right knee is towards the bolster. There's probably a little space between the right thigh and the bolster for some of us. And for some, we might be able to have it right next to it, like completely, next to it with pressing. So you decide where the sand goes, and then, as I mentioned, the arm, you get to feel where does it work with your shoulder. Maybe you have your palm up at the wall, your head resting on the blankets. Okay, but the focus really here is the ribs expanding. Now they'll contract on their own because each time you expand, it's going to let go at some point, right? And your length on your breath is just entirely random sometimes. Let's see if you can feel kind of, I guess maybe ribful. Feel the movement in the ribs. The left hand could also come down onto the bolster. You can focus on the ribs. And finally, just letting the weight of your head relax. Super important. Head relaxes. Ribs expand. Now, when you roll onto your back, let your ball come back behind you. So you'll just let your sand slide. You'll gently curl in towards the right side and then grab your ball and just place it to your bolster and lean back on it. So it's going to be under your back, right? So my ball, I tend to scoot my seat a little bit away from the bolster. You might have to scoot more, depending on your length. Put the ball behind the heart. Just press into the ball. This is best. Just ball 101. Just lean into it. Okay, first thing. Breathe. Maybe hands behind the head. This is something I find to be helpful. Some of you might not. You might feel comfortable with your elbows down, your hands on your thighs. And then see if you can let your body kind of go side to side a little bit like a typewriter shift, side to side. Okay. Feel the weight back into the ball. It should just put a little imprint into your back. No permanent prints, but just feel a little bit of pressing into each side of the back, into the skin, right? Even if you got your shirt on, right? The skin is the largest organ. It's an organ. It's so large, right? Think about that. So this ball stuff can be interesting for just the touch value. And then just roll. Now, I like to play with the ball, trying to figure out how to roll my ribs on it. So roll to the other side for side sage. Move the hip, then move your ribs. One of these days, try this side sage with the ball. And you don't use a sandbag, that would be cruel. But really working with that elasticity here of the breathing muscles, right, the intercostals, okay? But for for simplicity today, let's put the ball under the knee now. Okay. If you decide to play with the ball, it might feel a little strange, but then when you are done with it, I think the ribs feel fantastic. So, you know, it's a good little playtime for the ribs. You know, balls are great for that. And then as you extend over, you might go, okay, wait, my sand is in a different spot. It's going to change how your arm, kind of the arm supply of movement is, right? It's going to change. So if my sand goes higher, it's going to kind of pull different in my arm. Yeah, this side feels really different. So I'm going to scoot a little farther away from the wall so I can get some sort of length. Now, if you feel like a prickly sensation right into the shoulder, rotator cuff, you go, okay, I feel that. Maybe you do a little less. I don't think pushing into the joint where it's like, I feel one little spot really strongly is going to be healthy. You want to feel that the ribs are stretching, not just that your mind is stuck on a spot that is hurting. So if that's happening, the arm can go by the side. You can rest on the bolster. You can rest on the back of your head or roll down to the left side of the brain. I don't think I've seen anyone do this with their forehead down, though. Yeah, I think that's not the best thing for the neck. So we want to have it on the side or on the back. And just give yourself a few more solid, focused moments, whether the arm is reaching on the side or down completely. The right leg has some reach back, right? So this is, I think, pretty key. And sort of the layer that gets lost is what the leg ability, how that movement, even if it feels pretty minimal, it can affect the stretch in the psoas in a really interesting way. And how that weaves up into the pelvis and then up into the ribs. Yeah, try to relax your buttock. It's already going to be working a little bit just to be in the shape, so you don't have to put any energy into contracting. Just be. Lie on the props. That's enough some days, right? You don't have to activate every pose. You know, once you slide that sand off, okay, we're going to actually roll onto our backs this way. So we'll go left, rounding, lifting, turning, push the blankets away, and then carefully bring both knees towards the wall, and then move your bolster to the base. Okay, let's take a blanket. How about one? And you're going to need a ball for this one. So a blanket, sand goes to the side. A blanket is really flat, right? So of course blankets are flat anyway. But don't let it be folded too high up. Don't let that blanket fold you, fool you. All right, bring your feet to the bolster, right? I think you can see this blanket's not too much in the way. All right, so ball under left buttock, okay? Pressing and massaging. If you don't have a ball, you can do windshield wiper. And if you never used a ball, then it actually will probably feel pretty good. The problem is once you start using this ball, then you kind of rely on this texture to assist that circulation. So, I don't know. So if you don't have a ball, your feet are as wide, a little wider than hips distance, knees guide side to side, swivel the knees. If you've got a ball, you don't really want to focus on the knee swivel as much as the hips moving. So the ball is, you're pinning onto the ball, you're pushing and smoothing out through the left glute, meet it closer to the border on the left side. So see if you can move your hips a little bit under and to the right, so you can feel that itty bitty pressure. Doesn't need to be much, right? You're just trying to jostle the tissues and roll across the tissues. So you're teasing the tissues is what it is. It's a tissue teaser. Okay, so as you roll and kind of fluff up the buttocks, right? It's kind of the idea. The skin has that hole, big organ, right? Skin, largest organ. So we're on one little segment of it, aren't we? Just one. But this movement, I can feel it in my abdominal area, kind of going side to side. I still feel all other areas that are getting some work. And then just move the ball to the right buttock and press and let your hips go side to side. You might close your eyes when you go from into the second side and just sense, is it about the same range I work with? Maybe I do this a little different on the right side. So you can always back up and go to the other one again and go, okay. Who knows, maybe it's that side of your back that's different, or your hip, your knee. It could be a lot of things that maybe feel tighter on one side than the other. But your work is to let your arms be wherever they want to be. Hands can rest on your ribs. And you can kind of go kind of crazy with the movement, faster. You can go slow and just lean into the ball. Okay. Now let's take the ball. Now, those of you without a ball, I wouldn't recommend putting a block on your tailbone, like right at the base for what we're doing here. If you want to try it, I mean, you're welcome to, but you can just bring your legs to center about hips distance. I've got the ball at the sacrum, and so it's at the final bone in my spine. And I'm just going to lie onto that ball. So if you don't have the ball, you just lie onto your back, right? And then gradually, I'm going to let one leg at a time stretch straight up. Again, you can do this without the ball. It's a little bit challenging, right, to say the least. Okay, but get a feel of just that simple lift of the legs and the extension of that lower back. Breathing. A little more flexion than extension, isn't it? Okay, now as the legs go towards the wall, towards the wall, towards the wall. Okay, bend the knees, lower the feet, touch down, and then I want you to scoot the bolster over to that right side. So you lift the hips and slide the ball out, roll it out, or push it out, and then take the bolster to the right side of your mat, kick it over, and yeah, we want to keep the rear still kind of in that state of circulation. I don't want you to do a bridge pose right now, okay, because that would just grip it up. So you're going to roll into the right hip and swing the left leg over to the bolster, and do as much knee bending as you feel comfortable to do. So if it feels better to bend more, go for it. If it feels better to straighten a little bit with the left leg, that might be better for some of us. Okay. So it's not necessarily a knee thing, it could be a hip thing or a low back thing. So grab the sand, if you're going to use that, place it high up onto the hip for what we were just doing. I mean, we did the ball circulation, so higher up on the side of the left thigh than maybe your usual. If you tend to always have it close to the knee, try to bring it higher. If it's across the leg, horizontal, you can always pivot the sand, see if that kind of scoops up your hip better. I'm not so sure I like that variation. So left arm is open, head rolls left. And just feel the range of motion on the hip. With the breath. let the left arm slide down, and then just move the ball. Move it over to the side yard. And then as you start to shift the sand, bring it maybe to the belly or the floor, and then bring the knees to point up. Shift the pelvis back into the neutral center, and then taking your bolster over to the left side. Okay, now bolster goes left side of the mat. I'm going to move my sand a little bit over to my right rib cage, lower ribs, and then swing the right leg over to the bolster. Now the sand could be kind of difficult, right, to maneuver when you're just trying to get your hips to twist here. So reach the right thigh to that bolster, then putting that sack onto the hip, and then the ball, or you can go backwards on that, or whatever direction you think it is. You can put the ball there and then the sand onto the hip. I like to switch it up just to feel the dynamic of changing how I coordinate things. I think that's it, because right, some of the sensory work, right, we're focusing on sensory input, but also motor control. I know, even though you think you got all your motor control down, right, it's good to kind of find a different way to coordinate, sometimes a little bit of a change. And then when the right arm opens out, you don't have to open it that far. You can bend the elbow quite a bit, but kind of feel that liberating reach of the rib cage with the breath. Right. Sometimes it's nice to feel the expansive quality on a lower abdominal level. Right. So I'm always trying to get my pattern of breath below my chest, right? So I'm not kind of heaving with my breath. If I'm breathing through the nose, it will likely not be a heaving breath. You can already feel the movement, the particular difference with breathing through the nose. You can kind of visualize, since our body does have things that are tubular inside, that as you breathe in, ribs expand from that breath, pushing in, the diaphragm moving down, pushing things out of the way. And as you exhale, empty the lungs. However you feel comfortable on the exhale, mouth or nose. Just depends on how you're regulating. And that's okay either way. Now finally feel if the back of the bottom hip feels like it's gripping. Okay, if it's a little grippy, see if you can let it go. Left hip. All right, and then slide the sand and push it down towards the wall. And the ball can go to the side. You can toss it. Okay, roll left. Bring the hands to push down, and then move your bolster right up to the wall. Okay. Blanket goes in. I'm actually surprised I was able to do that last one with the blanket so lower height. So I'm going to go a little higher up on this one. So I fold it just a little bit more. And yeah, so your height could be this much, it could be lower. But when you get up on your bolster, see if you can get to one side of the bolster. And then shoulder rolls under and legs swing upside down. Yeah, it's kind of a different way of getting into legs up than we did earlier in the session. It's really nice to vary it up. You know, legs up you could have a whole hour talking about the benefits of it, but it is curious how the core responds, especially if you've done it for a while. It's a really nice maintenance pose, right, for your heart, for your lungs, for your diaphragm, right? You're always doing maintenance work, maintenance and repairs. Okay, so when I have my feet up, I'm going to have sand on them. I think that's good. Sometimes it feels better without sand, to be honest. So you decide. Now the legs could be either weightless without sand or having that pressure to intensify that flush, but either's fine. It's going to be good either way. If you want to have a little bit more on your core, you can put a blanket, maybe fold it up. It's a little bit of weight. You know, it's a few pounds. Okay, maybe it's 2.5. All right, arms lower down, shoulders back. Receive your breath. Just let the weight of the spine release down, and the opposite part of the spine is that whole tundra of energy in the organs, in the heart, the ribs, the lungs. So just feel that special quality of moving inside the body with the breath. You can do it anytime, just centering on your breath and feeling that elasticity of the inside of your body. It's like the trampoline breath, right? Rebounding inside the body. And then at some point, just be a little bit more peaceful, not as much exertion. And just let your body receive the benefits from the shape. Now gently shift the feet from the wall. Bend the knees, remove the sand. Maybe you toss it overhead. Place it to the side. And then just feeling the knees bending, feel the connection in that back space. Maybe it's not just low back, but it's an interesting spread of the lungs and the back. It's a pressure, and then it kind of pulses out into the back. So just notice just that there's an experience of circulation. This is basically a circulation event. That's what this session is every time. Circulation event. And then as you roll to the side, you might want to move your blanket. You might just roll into it and then come on up. Take a moment here, since we're in our virtual community, bring the hips back to the bolster in the wall, and then line up the feeling of the chest stretching gently out, even with the hands resting on the thighs. The chest can gently broaden. See if you can just lightly broaden the chest with the breath, not pulling around with the arms or pushing anything specifically, just the in-breath expansion and the out-breath settling into the lower belly. Let the hands rise up to the palms to palms, inhaling together, breathing into yourself, and most importantly, out to others. And with exhale, bowing into that peace behind your heart.